one of the goals with the story, it follows 8 or 9 main characters. And I was trying to write it as though it was like one of those zany Robert Altman scripts from the 1970s, you know, where you kind of like Nashville, where you're following 6 or 7 heads and you can't really tell how all the threads are going to worm their way together, but slowly but certainly they work into some sort of chrysalis towards the end of the piece. So that was what I was trying to do. So I'll read a couple little sections from some of the different characters so you kind of get a flavor for some different people that are playing in the book, yeah? I have to wear glasses when I read now. Probably in 2 years I'll have to wear a toupee. Slowly working toward that. The first section of the book that I wanted to share with you is just going to be from the beginning, from the first chapter, and it's called Seducing the Dismal. Is that loud enough? You can hear everything?
Yeah, great.
Let's start this one when a cancer patient named No Eyebrows creeps into Damascus, a Mission District dive bar. For years, the place's floor, walls, and ceiling had been painted entirely black, but that afternoon the owner added another element, smashing 20 mirrors and gluing the shards to the ceiling so the pieces shimmered like stars, transforming Damascus into a planetarium for drunkards, dejected men and women stargazing from bar stools. When the first customer of the day walked in and witnessed the bar's broken mirror constellations, he said to the owner, "There must be 10,000 years of bad luck hanging in here." "That would certainly explain a few things," Owen said, who had a heinous birthmark underneath his nose that looked like a Hitler mustache. Damascus always had rock and roll on the jukebox. Right then it was AC/DC, playing the only chord progression they knew, howling about salacious women, which was funny because Damascus had an almost exclusively male clientele. Old drunks talking to themselves, trying to barter the price of a Corona with the bartender. Surly construction workers who drank from the minutes they got off work until last call. Off-duty mariachis getting more tone-deaf with each tilt of tequila. Insipid 20-something Caucasian boys, their cheeks stuffed with carbohydrates and college degrees. "Here's to honor," one stupid fucking white boy would say, "getting on her and staying on her." There were a few female regulars, and one who haunted the place was named Shambles. She had acne scars all over her cragged cheeks, pocked like the mirror shards glued to the bar's ceiling. Her eyes used to be blue, but they'd faded to matte gray. Shambles was the patron saint of the hand job, getting strangers off for less than the price of a parking ticket. So far tonight, she'd done only one, though there would be more fondling to finance her bar tab. The night was young and full of fisted opportunities. No Eyebrows stood next to Shambles' stool and ordered a shot of peppermint schnapps. Owen placed the huge shot down on the bar, and as No Eyebrows reached for it with a shaking hand, Shambles looked at his sallow skin, the way it clung to him like a layer of film on cold chicken broth. Most people were shocked by his appearance because he reinforced the fact that everyone was going to die. People pursed their lips and averted their eyes, shaming him into near invisibility with the verve of their avoidances, trying not to ogle the prowling dead. But Shambles wasn't deterred, or deflected, or weirded out by his appearance. Now she saw him as a business opportunity, dollar signs, and untapped masturbation markets. "Do you mind if I drink with you?" Shambles said to No Eyebrows, then asked Owen to pour her another whiskey. "I'd like that," No Eyebrows said. "Thank you." "Why are you thanking me for drinking with you?" she said. I was raised right. Cheers, he said, holding his schnapps up in the air like a Bible in a minister's hand, a prop to retrofit the fragile world. Instead of echoing cheers, though, Shambles crashed her glass into his, spilling whiskey on her fingers, and said, "To livers aching like shin splints." They drained their shots, flushed faces from the spirits, humidity spreading through their private ecosystems. "I've never seen you here before," Shambles said. "It's my first time. What brought you into this dump?" "I was incredibly parched," he said. "Well, you don't seem like you have much in common with these deadbeats," she said. He pointed at some of the men in their vicinity and said, "Well, doesn't that make them the lucky ones?" Shambles didn't know how to respond to this, didn't know what to do with that kind of tactless honesty amongst strangers, especially in bars where men and women typically honed their espionage cloaked in personas. Deception was the norm. Cab drivers disclosed that they were venture capitalists. Rickety alcoholics morphed into ex-athletes. Those with anonymous office jobs had recently retired from the cubicle because of an important invention. In fact, one bloke even tried to convince a woman that he masterminded the caps lock key. Every interchange was a con. Every night a pitiful costume party. Except here was no eyebrows blowing, the whole cycle of charades for everyone. Here he was having the audacity to be heartfelt. And what was Shambles supposed to do with someone showing honesty? So instead of answering him directly, she turned her attention to tawdry commerce. "Hey, how'd you like to get off?" she asked. And since we're all just meeting, I'm not going to read the scene where getting stodgy in my old age. But they're kind of the love story that runs through the majority of the book. And then the other characters are all kind of circling around this anti-war art show. This kind of launches the narrative. Basically, there's a performance artist who decides she wants to show her contempt for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan by painting 12 pictures of 12 dead soldiers. And then on the night of the opening, she nails live fish to each of the canvases. So as the show hangs for over the course of the month, the whole room will smell like a coffin. And there are some gentlemen in town that take offense to how she's showing her patriotism, and that kind of launches the book. But you heard me mention in the first little excerpt a guy named Owen and this treacherous birthmark he has on his face. It looks like a Hitler mustache. Early on, he has some sort of confrontation with a family on the street, and he realizes that he doesn't want people to think he looks like Hitler anymore, and that's where we'll pick up the story. Owen walked by a homeless man who'd scattered on the sidewalk the items he'd found, swapped, or stolen. These were laid out on a blanket to entice pedestrians. There were some clothes, a single CD, a naked Barbie doll, a broken sewing machine, a bunch of old cassette tapes, mostly Motown, and a cracked black case for an acoustic guitar. The guy also had 6 issues of The New Yorker from the early 90s with tattered, water-damaged pages, stiff and toothed at the edges. Nothing highfalutin or of any real monetary value, but as Owen walked toward the end of the man's paltry sale, he saw something worthy of another style of appraisal. He saw the Santa suit. He saw asylum. Owen stopped in front of the costume. He imagined all those part-time workers portraying Santa in malls around the country come December. their true identities hidden under a facade of happy association. See, he needed to bury the Hitler costume he couldn't take off under the image of this Yuletide superhero. The homeless guy held a harmonica in his hand, though he hadn't played a note since Owen had been in earshot. "How much for the Santa suit?" Owen asked. The wind picked up a bit, fog drifting from the Castro through the Mission. A car was being hooked to a tow truck across the street. Someone was taping Xeroxed copies of a missing cat poster over an abandoned storefront. Information leading to chipped whiskers. Safe return would result in a handsome reward. "The suit's $20, the homeless guy said. "Well, but it's filthy." "Then don't buy it," he said. "Someone else will. Christmas is coming." The homeless guy put the harmonica in his mouth and played a series of carefree notes to illustrate his ambivalence about the transaction. Owen sighed, saddened that he'd been bested by a homeless merchant. "20 it is," he said. "Wear that uniform well," the homeless guy said. "Make Kris Kringle proud." Owen removed his coat and began to put the suit on over his clothes. The Santa pants were a little short for him, revealing an inch of his jeans, a little tight in the waist. The coat, too, was snug, sleeves only coming 3/4 of the way down his forearms, but he didn't care. Once he slipped the beard and hat on, every man, woman, and child would see Santa Claus and think to themselves, "Yes, yes, yes. Now there's a friendly face." There was a college student out front of Ritual Roasters, wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt, holding a clipboard. He asked Owen, "Hey bro, does Santa want to sign a petition to legalize marijuana?" "I stay out of politics," Owen said. "Who said anything about politics? This is about our God-given right to smoke the sticky icky." Owen only shrugged and went inside the cafe, ordered a double espresso. The young hipster behind the counter sported full sleeves of tattoos, inch-long crows flying up her arms. She said to him, "Can I give you my Christmas list?" "Of course. All I want is for my boyfriend to go to rehab," she said. I'll see what I can do." "Well, and maybe the new PJ Harvey CD." "Noted. But, if I had to choose one or the other, definitely Seth getting into rehab. I can't remember the last time I saw him sober. Last time I caught him licking a stick of butter as a midnight snack. This morning, he was drinking rum in the shower when I left." I'll do my best to help him," Owen said. The crows on the backs of her wrists had their beaks open, shrieking. Owen tried to hand her $3, but she shook it away. Then she looked around, and once convinced that her perimeter was safe from any managerial condemnation, she whispered to Santa Claus, "Your money's no good around here." This was the first time that had ever been the case for Owen, before his transformation from villain to saint. Elation thumped through Owen as he walked out of the cafe, energetic and motivated to cruise the neighborhood and watch people's reactions to his new protective skin. The public proved very interesting in chatting with him. There were ho-ho-hos, and "Hey Santa, what are you doing out in October? Consumer research?" And even, "Don't forget about me, I've been nice all year except to my brother, but he's a total fucking asshole." And finally, "I just got laid off by my startup. Are you guys hiring up at the North Pole?" All of these were met with the warmest wishes and largest smiles from Mr. Claus as Owen gushed enthusiasm in his new starring role. No one was ordering a whiskey sour and defiantly staring at his birthmark. No one threw up in the bathroom and told Owen he better go swab the decks. Point is that these were no small victories for Owen. They were overdue. You might wonder why he didn't grow a beard and cover the damn thing up, but it wasn't that easy. Hair follicles unable to penetrate the abomination's cruel girth. Way back when, he'd even pondered plastic surgery, but his insurance snickered at the idea elective procedures might fall under their jurisdiction. Sure, the fog and wind were chilly, but Owen didn't care, didn't even notice them as he paraded like a holiday peacock. "I'm never taking this suit off ever," Owen said, preparing to perform a belly laugh for a group of people coming his way. One of them was already calling out from down the block, "We love you, Santa. What kind of cookies should we leave out this year?" Thank you very much.